It's a philosophy of going the extra mile. It's the do unto others. It's part of our mission statement is to follow the golden rule, and that really breaks down to treating other people as you want to be treated, giving the kind of service that you want to give. People don't talk about average service. People only talk about really great service or really lousy service. We want our customers to talk about us, but we want them to talk about us, our great service. That's what we're trying to get them to talk about. Average service, nobody talks about. We want them to talk about our great service. And we do a lot of things. Our employees look for ways to kind of go over the top. And in this company, they're rewarded when they do that. I hope there's hundreds of examples out there, and I hope there are 100 more still to come.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order, and we'll turn it over to the city manager to go through the agenda. It's kind of cozy here today, isn't it?
Not cozy today.
How are you, Mark?
I'm fine, Eric. I'm good.
Put that in the minutes. I want that reflected in the minutes.
Don't make minutes.
And who said it?
It is, however, recorded for all of posterity.
Okay, that was, never mind.
That would be.
Item number 1, last week's minutes.
Do you have all this one? I didn't see
They
it.
were read word for word.
Mhm.
Extensive study was provided.
Mhm.
Questions,
Next
comments?
week will be the challenge, with nobody. No, it's good.
Okay, item number 2, ordinance 7407, first reading, changing the zoning. This is the Sikowski development on Quail Creek. Changing from R2 to R3. You have that on tab 2. I think the map, just right before you get to 3, illustrates that. Kelly?
This is a little different in that for this particular development, it's not your typical large phased subdivision, but it is a significant residential development. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to accommodate the developer's needs as best we can. From the very beginning, the developer wanted R2 zoning. R2 zoning has a setback of 25 feet, and he wanted more of a front yard setback for this development. However, when he started talking to the builders and lots began to sell, a common problem with some of the developers were that they would like, it's sort of a popular trend now to build a larger house, larger footprint on a smaller lot, have less yard, those kind of things, but still be able to have a larger home. So the lots that went first were the lots on the very northern part of this development, and we rezoned those as 0 lot line homes and went to R3 zoning. To accommodate that, but we left the remainder of the subdivision zoned R2. There has been some homes that there are about 10 homes, 8 homes out there that have already started construction. However, the developer's having the same problem with some of the builders, that they're wanting a larger house to be built on the lots that are available. So he's requesting to change the zoning to R3 for the entire subdivision. And this would, again, allow a lesser setback from R2 is 25 feet, R3 is 15-foot setback in the front. But the main deal is the lot coverage percentage. R2 allows a 45% lot coverage, whereas R3 allows a 65% lot coverage.
What does that do to the owners that are out there that any of them, they're already built?
Well, and therein lies why this is a little different. We've already had some of the homes started, and they're all at a 25-foot setback. However, all of the lots, Anthony still doesn't like a 15-foot front yard setback. He has deed restrictions over the entire property. That was something that when we were talking, he was not willing to give on, so he kept the deed restrictions for the property at 25-foot front yard setback. Again, he's just wanting to do the zoning actually for the change in lot coverage from 45% to 65%.
So the 65% would still need to be 25-foot setback.
That's correct.
So it won't skew the look of the neighborhood from,
It won't, you know, hopefully it doesn't. You know, we don't enforce deed restrictions, but the hope is there, especially Anthony's hope is that it won't, you know, skew the look. But in trying to be, and just to give you an idea, you know, going to a 65 with the 45% lot coverage, that would give them about a 1,755 square foot building envelope. If you raise that to 65%, that gives them about 2,500 square feet. So it's a significant difference. But the front yard setbacks and everything would be the same by deed restriction.
so your backyards would just be smaller.
And your side lots.
And side lot. Well, the setbacks.
The side yards and everything would remain the same. It's just the building envelope.
The back would where the sacrificing yard would be for house, right?
And you could sacrifice it. You mean if you kept the 25? Yeah, it would be the backyard.
Backyard.
But
The setbacks on the side are not really negotiable from our setbacks from the property lines, right?
well, I'm just trying to tell you what the entire total building envelope would be. So the only thing that you could go to your setbacks with a 65% lot coverage, you know, the setbacks would remain the same. You would just be able to build closer to your setbacks. with
So the setbacks between R2 and R3 don't change other than the
Right.
front.
Other than the
And
front,
the
they're all
front
the
is
same.
moved from this place, this point, because of the deed
That's
restrictions.
That's correct.
What are the side lot setbacks? 10?
5.
5?
5 on each side. Unless you're on a corner, then it's 5 on the interior and 10 on the
So
street.
am I missing the boat? In my mind, the only place they can expand that footprint from 45 to 65 is in the backyard space, straight back. That's correct, right? I don't have any problem.
Yeah. And
It's still 25-foot front,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Set by
of
deed
restrictions, not the cover.
set by deed restriction, and just to throw this out there, you know, even mentioned in our comprehensive plan, you know, a lot of cities are going to provide more flexibility, an average setback, you know, per development. And there are some who feel that cookie cutter, everybody looks the same, you know, type development might be enhanced by a little variety in setbacks. And so worst case scenario, these are very short blocks, and some have curves in them. So if for some reason the deed restrictions were violated or something, there could be the possibility that you could have a 10-foot and a 15-foot and a 25-foot. But whether that would be, you know, that would be a little different for Amarillo, but there are some who prefer that.
Now, was the part that's marked Bacchus Street and the part to the east, is that undeveloped? Is that going to, that's just in the 200-foot zone for notification?
Yes.
Okay, but the entire development is going to that.
The entire subdivision would be zoned R3. And it would just allow them to increase their building footprint a percentage.
So that's everything in the light yellow here?
Crosshatch.
Okay. Oh,
And again, we don't normally like doing something like this, especially once there's already building that occurred, but there's about 8 buildings out there. But again, we're just trying to,
And you got nothing from them when you noticed it?
no. The only thing we've received is calls from the builders wanting to know when can they get their permits and when the zoning is going to take effect.
There are several other newer neighborhoods where you see the large homes on relatively small lots. So it's becoming more prevalent.
that's what I was thinking, like mine, like yours.
We go to Highland Park in Dallas, and we
Yeah.
got 5,000 square foot homes on,
Yeah.
5,000 square foot lots. It seems like.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.
Item number 3, this is the second and final ordinance we looked at last week for the settlement on SBS's rate increases. I've had no calls. Has anybody had any?
No.
No.
Consent agenda. Excuse me. Consent item A, replacing the boiler at the police and court building. Not a lot to it. Need to have it, and you can no longer keep us from fixing it. Item B, electrical service at 808 South Buchanan. In lieu of a better name, in lieu of continuing to call it the old Ephes building, we're now just calling it 808 South Buchanan. So anytime anybody's got a name, we'd sure like to hear it.
See you at the 808.
We could put a little coffee shop up there in that.
ECC. The Eek building, the Eek.
Let me kind of explain this little greater detail here. Everybody's aware that when Tooten Totem came in and took the block immediately to the south, the utilities went underground. Of course, that street between this building and the Tooten Totem property is one of the most densely populated utility corridors in downtown, not a small part of which is directly related to the 808 building. We brought to you last summer in the budget, and you approved a project to help us get started on the renovations over there. One thing that we're doing two things primarily. One will be to get the architect to move from the concept phase into the other phase, and then the second is doing as much stuff as we can in-house in conjunction with getting our part of the utilities out of the way. So what this project does is in the extreme northeast corner of the building will be the new electrical service. Today, the electrical service comes into that building at the second floor level at two different places in the alley. Yeah, and it's been a problem for us for as long as we've had the building. We probably lose power over there more than any other facility that we have. So this will do then two things. We'll put that service over on the northeast corner. In fact, the pads are already out there. The new transformer will be there. We'll have a single transformer instead of the multiple transformers hanging on the post. We will have that building then ready to relocate. I don't know if any of y'all have seen the electrical room, but it's in the middle of the building. It's a really unusual place. We'll relocate all that service. We'll be able to take all the poles but one out of that alley. And then when we come back and do the big ditch for the downtown utility relocations, we'll get to start out in the middle of 8th Street. So we'll have already gained a block on that project. And we think that we'll be able to do that project with no service interruptions because this allows us to tie to the properties to the north if needed. So, long explanation to say that you're going to have an above-ground transformer instead of them hanging up on deals, and we're going to get the poles out.
So those units will move away from the building up on top again too, or where will they be? The air conditioning and condensers?
That won't come until we
Okay.
do the remodeling, and what you'll probably see the far south end of that alley, we have a single larger unit that took the place of, I think, 4 of those little ones. You'll probably see another one of those. It'll still be at ground level. But there's 20-some odd of those on the roof of that building already. It's really...
You're talking about there at the south of the big area.
Exactly. Just immediately to the south.
They haven't fixed that facade that was cracking in the back there, have they?
It'll sure help. Of course, we presume the new entrance to the building will be in the alley, so you'll see something similar to what we've done over at the clinic and going into the comm center. Over at that middle set of doors, you'll have a big entry. So the building will be on Pierce but facing Buchanan. That entryway that's over at the corner of 8th and Pierce really doesn't give you good access to the bulk of that building, so I think we'll have a new one in the middle of the alley. And the alley's closed. We closed it right after we bought the building. It just doesn't look like it. Okay. Any questions on that? I hope you'll see the architectural contract here pretty quick. We've done some cleanup inside, and we'll keep kind of nibbling around the edges. Item C, Amarillo Economic Development Corporation, City of Amarillo Lease Agreement, Amendment Number 1. This is really a cleanup to the existing lease agreement that we have between the city and AEDC for what is commonly known as the old Benny Keith building. Of course, the Benny Keith building is home to a AEDC project right now, GTP, Gas Transport Manufacturing. So they've been a good tenant. The lease terms and rent provisions were no longer in line from the city to AEDC and from AEDC to the tenant. So we're fixing primarily those two things. Also cleaning up some insurance language. And that is the sum total of your agenda for today. We have some closed session items, and I think we'll get everybody out, be out early and ready to go for those that are going over to the Marriott for the historical marker dedication.